escalating Middle East tensions are triggering a supply chain crunch for South Korea's manufacturers, with disrupted shipping cutting off key imports like naphtha and aluminum, threatening production both the petrochemical and auto sectors. Our business and economy correspondent Kim Do-yeon joins us in the studio to tell us more about this. Welcome, Do-yeon.
Good to be here, Sujin.
Great. So let's start with the petrochemical sector. So we're hearing a lot about severe naphtha shortages, but South Korea refines its own crude into naphtha. So why are shortages emerging now?
Now, it is a structural vulnerability in the supply chain, Sujin. Naphtha is the foundational material for essential goods, including food packaging, medical syringes, and automotive components. South Korea produces roughly 55% of its required naphtha domestically, like you said, by refining crude oil, but relies on imports to fill the remaining 45%. The core issue is that the Middle East accounts for 77% of those imported volumes. Because both imported naphtha shipments and crude oil deliveries have been delayed by the blocked shipping routes, the domestic supply has severely fractured. Experts point out that for a manufacturing powerhouse lacking natural resources, heavy reliance on the Middle East for high-volume raw materials has always been an unavoidable reality.
South Korea and Japan are in the exact same situation. Because both lack natural resources but are manufacturing powerhouses, the Middle East has always treated Korea as an unconditional big buyer.
So the auto sector is also bracing for disruptions, this time from aluminum shortages. So why is this material becoming such a bottleneck?
Sujin, the Middle East accounts for about 10% of global primary aluminum production, and because of the blockade in the strait, the price of aluminum have gone up to a 4-year high. Processed aluminum has become increasingly critical for automakers as they transition to electric vehicles, which require the material for light-weighing vehicle frames and battery casings. And as we all know, auto export is one of the pillars of the nation's export economy, and analysts say that this could cause a severe production delay.
Because a car doesn't just consist of one or two things, if the raw material supply for core components is affected, the car has 30,000 parts. And if a problem arises with just one or two, they can't be produced.
Automakers typically maintain an inventory buffer of 3 to 6 months for parts. However, the prolonged nature of this conflict means that those domestic stockpiles will reach a critical depletion point by May and June. If raw materials are not secure by then, delayed shipments will directly collide with peak manufacturing schedules, overloading the industry's just-in-time production systems and stalling operations.
And this brings us to the government's response. So what measures are being taken to ease the supply crunch?
Now, Sujin, the government has been implementing contingency plans since the early stages of the supply shock. Last month, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Resources initiated a 5-month export restriction on domestically produced naphtha to keep volumes inside the country, alongside an emergency supply adjustment order for 7 critical base oils. The ministry also deployed a 130 billion won export voucher to subsidize surging freight costs for affected companies and applied zero-tariff quotas on essential imported base materials. Earlier on Thursday, during the senior secretaries' meeting, the president addressed the supply chain risks directly and reiterated the recent new measures to bypass the Middle East choke point.
중동 전쟁이 7주차에 접어들면서 제조업 전반으로 공급망 리스크가 빠르게 확대될 수 있습니다. 이런 가운데 중동 중앙아시아 4개국과 원유 2억 7,300만 배럴, 나프타 210만 톤을 대체 공급선을 확보했는데 국내 수급 안정 그리고 경제산업 피해 최소화에 크게 도움이 될 것 같습니다.
The president emphasized that the government must quickly process the necessary procedures to bring these secure volumes into the country. Furthermore, a $1 billion supply chain stabilization fund has been actively mobilized to assist domestic manufacturers in absorbing the surging production costs until the alternative supply lines are fully operational.
All right, thank you so much for your analysis today, Do-yeon.
Thank you for having me, Sejin.